Billionaire and mistress returned from a vacation, but poor wife has packed out. Then this happened. He returned from a lavish vacation, hand in hand with the woman he chose over his wife, but the home he abandoned was no longer the same. The wife he left behind in pain and poverty had vanished, and what came next was something neither he nor his mistress could have imagined. What do you think awaited him when he walked through that door? Sit back and journey with us into this emotional story of betrayal, loss, and a twist that turned arrogance into regret. Hello family, welcome back. Please do well to subscribe, and let's know where you are watching the story from in the comment section. The photo hit her phone at 2:07 a.m., bright, glossy, cruel. Richard stood on a yacht with Veronica tucked against his side, the Aegean Sea spread behind them. His smile was young and careless. Veronica's hand rested on his chest like she owned it. The caption read, "My queen deserves the world. Greece with you is heaven." Clara stared until the light burned her eyes. The house was quiet, the dishwasher humming, the hall clock ticking. Down the hallway, the children slept. She placed the phone face down and folded her hands to keep them from shaking. Somewhere, in a memory, there was the man she once fed with borrowed money. But that man no longer lived here. It hadn't started this way. When Clara met Richard, he was broke but hungry for success. She sold her jewelry to buy him a laptop. She borrowed money to cover rent when a client paid late. She typed his first proposals at midnight in their tiny apartment. When his pitch was accepted, he spun her around the kitchen, both laughing like children. In those years, she was his partner in everything. He called her my right hand, and she believed him. She believed so much that when he asked her to sign loan papers in her name, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door to his dreams, but when success came, love faded. Richard bought louder suits, sought wealthier friends, and soon wanted more than what he had at home. He wanted excitement, something he thought Clara could no longer give. The first time he paraded Veronica in public, it was at a rooftop launch party. Richard walked in late with her on his arm, a red dress glittering under the lights. He didn't introduce her. He didn't need to. The way he leaned down to whisper in her ear made everything clear. Clara caught him by the bar. "Richard," she whispered, "what is this?" "Networking," he said smoothly, sipping his drink. "That woman, Veronica," he interrupted. "She's important to me." Then he leaned close enough for her to smell the alcohol. "You should be grateful I still let you live here." The words hit like a slap. Clara didn't cry. She stood still, silent, watching city lights flicker, and something inside her folded. From then on, humiliation came in waves. Veronica appeared at gala dinners, introduced as a consultant. She sat beside Richard at charity auctions, her hand brushing his arm whenever he raised his paddle. Photographers angled their shots to capture her sparkle while Clara was placed in the shadows. At a children's hospital fundraiser, Clara wore a simple navy dress she had saved for. She hoped for dignity. Veronica showed up in sequins that caught every camera flash. The tabloids printed Veronica's photo beside Richard's, calling them a power couple. Later that night in the parking lot, Clara whispered, "You're hurting me." Richard shrugged. "Don't be dramatic. This is how things are. Then change them." He gave a cold laugh. "You can be replaced. Don't make me prove it." Friends pitied her. Some urged her to leave. Others told her to endure. She endured for her children, for the vows she once made, for the ghost of the man she used to love. She kept the house running, packed lunches, attended school meetings, wrote charity checks in her name, and pretended not to see the headlines. But Richard didn't stop. At a business conference, a reporter asked what inspired him. With Veronica by his side, he answered, "Everything I do for the future," his hand resting openly on her back. The reporter's eyes flicked to Clara, then quickly away, as if ashamed. At home, the cruelty was quieter but sharper. Richard moved his suits into another room, started locking his study, and told the staff to consult Veronica for events. "She has better taste," he said. When Clara objected, he smiled like a man indulging a child. "Play your position." One evening, Clara waited up for him. "Richard, the children hear things. They ask questions. Stop bringing her out in public." He leaned over her chair. "Our name is mine. Be grateful I still let you live here." The words echoed for days. Clara's silence became her shield. She smiled at the gardener, paid the piano teacher, and tucked her children in, while inside she burned. Then came the trip, the one that broke her completely. Richard announced it casually in the kitchen. "I'll be gone 2 weeks, business in Europe." "Which cities?" she asked. "All of them," he said. She wiped her hands. "Are you taking Veronica?" He slipped his phone into his pocket. "That's none of your business. This marriage is my business." "Is it?" He smirked. "We're done talking." He left instructions for staff, made promises to the children, kissed Clara's forehead without touching her heart, and walked out. 2 days later, the internet exploded. Veronica posted the first photo, her legs on a deck chair with the Aegean behind them. Caption, "My view for the week." Then came shots of yachts, dinners under string lights, and kisses staged for the camera. Richard was tagged in every post, as if humiliation was part of the plan. Clara's phone buzzed endlessly. Neighbors texted, friends called, even relatives sent links. She ignored them all, scrolling through each picture with a still face. In one video, Richard lifted a glass and said, "To love," while Veronica giggled against his shoulder. The comments called them perfect. Some asked, "What about his wife?" followed by laughing emojis. That night, Clara stood before her mirror, staring at the woman who had given everything and received nothing. She saw the new lines around her eyes, the quiet dignity in her posture. She saw strength no one photographed. Silence, she realized, had not been strength at all. It had been surrender. Every time she smiled through insult, every time she accepted his mistress in public, she gave away a piece of herself. Something hardened in her chest. She picked up her phone not to scroll but to open a note. She typed the title, "What I Know." She began to list everything. Names of investors, secret accounts Richard thought she ignored, deals whispered behind closed doors, details most wives forget, but she had memorized. Her hands no longer shook. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for Richard. She was building something of her own. The world had watched her humiliation. Soon it would watch something else. The yacht trip would end. The cameras would move on. But Clara's resolve had just begun, and Richard Collins had no idea the woman he had treated like trash was about to become his greatest undoing. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from and how did this story speak to you? Chapter 2, The Empty Mansion. The limousine rolled up the long driveway, tires crunching on gravel. Richard Collins leaned back in his seat, sunglasses still on, the Mediterranean tan glowing on his skin. Beside him, Veronica tossed her hair, scrolling through the hundreds of pictures they had posted during their vacation. She laughed. "Look at this one. Everyone keeps commenting. Relationship goals. You're trending again, Richard." Richard smirked. "Of course I am. People like success, and we give them a show." He placed an arm lazily across her shoulders. "When we walk in, I bet Clara will be waiting with her bitter face. She'll probably pretend she didn't see the photos, as if anyone in this town could miss them." Veronica's lips curved. "She's probably crying in some corner. Poor woman." The driver pulled to a stop. The towering mansion loomed above them, marble pillars shining, fountains spraying. Usually a team of staff stood at the door, waiting to greet him, bags ready to be carried. But today no one came out. Richard frowned. "Where the hell is everyone?" The butler finally appeared, not rushing, but walking slowly, almost reluctantly. He opened the car door, eyes lowered. "Welcome home, sir," the butler said quietly. Richard grabbed his suitcase himself and stormed inside. The grand foyer echoed strangely. Something was off. The chandelier glittered as always, but the air felt hollow. "Clara!" Richard's voice boomed. "Clara, where are you?" No answer. Veronica trailed behind, heels clicking. Maybe she's hiding from embarrassment. Richard threw open the living room doors. The room was clean, too clean. The framed family portraits gone. The vase Clara loved gone. Even the children's books that once littered the couch were nowhere to be seen. His heart kicked against his chest. "What is this?" "Maybe she finally left," Veronica said with a laugh. "Honestly, Richard, isn't that what you wanted?" No more gloomy face in the background. Richard ignored her. He stormed into the bedroom. Clara's closet stood open, empty hangers swaying like ghosts. Her shoes, her dresses, the boxes she stacked so neatly, all gone. The jewelry box he once gave her vanished. Richard's breathing grew heavier. No, she wouldn't. They went to the children's rooms. Beds were stripped, toys missing, the closets were bare. It looked as if no one had ever lived there. Richard's voice dropped. "She took the kids." For a moment, silence filled the halls. Even Veronica stopped smirking. Richard turned on the staff. "Where is she? Who helped her? Tell me now." The butler shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, Mrs. Collins asked us not to say anything." Richard's eyes blazed. "I pay you. You work for me. Now speak." The butler swallowed hard, then pointed toward the dining room. "She left that." On the polished table sat a single white envelope. Richard recognized the handwriting instantly. Steady, graceful, Clara's. His hand shook slightly as he tore it open. The letter was short, every word sharp as a blade. "For years you made a fool of me. You thought I was weak, but I was watching. I was planning. By the time you finish reading this, you'll realize I've taken more than just my dignity back." Richard read it twice, then laughed bitterly. This is nonsense. She's bluffing. Clara doesn't have the courage. But even as he said it, unease slithered into his chest. Clara had never spoken like this. She had always endured quietly. Now her words cut like steel. Veronica leaned over his shoulder, reading. Oh, dramatic. She probably just took some jewelry and ran to her mother's. Don't overthink it. Richard slammed the letter down. You don't know Clara. She never threatens. If she wrote this, she means something. He marched into his office, yanking drawers open, documents scattered, bank files, property deeds, password folders. Some things were missing. The safe was half empty. Richard's throat went dry. No, 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 no. He pulled out his laptop, typing furiously. His main account locked. A message popped up. Unauthorized access. Please contact your administrator. He shoved the laptop away, pacing the room. Veronica watched, arms crossed. So, she took some money. You'll make more. You're Richard Collins, billionaire. He spun on her. You don't understand. Clara knows things. She was with me from the start. She has access to everything. Investments, accounts, deals I made under the table. She knows it all. Veronica blinked, her smirk fading. You mean, she could ruin you? Richard clenched his jaw. If she talks. Yes. Silence stretched. The staff remained quiet, moving carefully, as if afraid to be noticed. The air in the mansion, once filled with Richard's booming voice and Veronica's laughter, now felt heavy with Clara's absence. Richard dropped onto the leather chair in his office, his hands pressed against his face. For years he believed Clara would never leave. He thought her silence was loyalty, that she would always endure. But she was gone, and she had left a warning. Veronica finally broke the silence. So, what now? Richard lifted his head slowly. His eyes burned. Now, he said, voice low, we find her, and we find out exactly what she took. But deep down, beneath his anger, a seed of fear began to grow. Clara had walked away quietly, but her letter promised something far louder, and Richard Collins, who thought he controlled everything, was about to learn what it felt like to lose. The first headline hit at dawn. Breaking. Richard Collins exposed. Fraud. Offshore accounts. Secret payments. Richard woke to the sound of his phone buzzing non-stop. His name was everywhere. He clicked one link after another. A calm news anchor spoke. Leaked files show Collins Global avoided taxes through offshore accounts. Audio recordings believed to be Richard Collins discuss hidden transfers and bribes. Richard slammed the phone shut. Nonsense. Who planted this? He called his PR head. Shut it down. Her voice was stiff. We can't. The documents are real. And Richard, only someone inside could know this much. Only one person had ever been that close. Clara. While Richard was flaunting Veronica across Europe, Clara had been moving pieces quietly. She had hired Evelyn Park, a sharp corporate lawyer who believed her story when no one else did. Richard thinks I'm weak, Clara told her. He doesn't realize I've been paying attention for years. Evelyn leaned forward. Do you have proof? Clara slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of contracts, suspicious invoices, even audio clips she'd recorded when Richard took calls on speakerphone, thinking she wasn't listening. I have proof, Clara said firmly, and I want to use it. Evelyn studied the stack. This isn't just evidence, this is a weapon. With Evelyn's guidance, Clara began transferring her shares out of Collins Global, quietly, legally. For months, she sold little by little, careful not to draw attention. She funneled those funds into Northbridge Technologies, a smaller rival Richard had always dismissed. Why Northbridge? Mia asked one evening as she watched Clara sign papers. Because Richard mocked them, Clara said. He called them insignificant. What he doesn't know is they have good people, honest contracts, and they need a lifeline. My lifeline. By the time Richard and Veronica posed on their yacht in Greece, Clara had already become Northbridge's largest shareholder. And once the leaks hit, investors desperate to escape Collins Global fled straight into Clara's waiting hands. By noon the day of the first leaks, Collins Global was in chaos. Banks froze accounts. Partners cancelled meetings. The board summoned Richard for an emergency session. Richard walked into the boardroom red-faced but defiant. This is a smear campaign. The CFO slid papers across the table. These emails were authenticated. That is your signature. And this, she said, hitting play on a recording, is your voice ordering an illegal transfer. The room went silent except for Richard's own voice playing back. Move the funds through Lisbon. No paper trail. Fabricated. Richard barked. It's not, the chairman said calmly. Forensic teams confirmed metadata. They looked at each other grimly. Then the chairman announced, we're voting to suspend you as CEO until this is resolved. You can't suspend me from my company, Richard spat. Watch us, one director said. Hands went up, one by one. The vote was unanimous. Security escorted Richard out of the building he once strutted through like a king. While Richard's empire cracked,
Clara made her move. That same day, she appeared on a live business broadcast as Northbridge's newest chairwoman. The host leaned in eagerly. "Mrs. Collins, congratulations. Your company's stock has surged 30% since this morning." Clara's voice was steady. "This isn't about me. It's about building something people can trust. Do you have a comment on your husband's troubles?" "My only comment," she said, eyes sharp, "is that no one should build wealth on lies. Sooner or later, lies collapse." The clip went viral. Investors who once praised Richard now hailed Clara as a symbol of resilience and intelligence. Mia hugged her that night. "You did it, Clara. You're not just surviving, you're leading." Clara shook her head. "I'm not done yet. He humiliated me for years. Now he will understand what it means to be powerless." Meanwhile, Veronica's loyalty proved as thin as her designer dresses. At a boutique, her Collins credit card was declined. Twice. She called Richard, furious. "Your cards don't work. Do you hear me? I'm standing in front of a cashier like some broke woman. Fix this right now." Richard pressed the phone to his ear, already pacing. "I don't have time for this. The board just suspended me." "You think I care about your board?" she snapped. "I care about not being humiliated in public. People know who I am. I can't stand here while a clerk tells me my card is no good. Then use another card." "They're all declined, Richard," she shouted. "Do you realize how cheap this makes me look? After everything I've put up with." He stopped pacing. "Everything you've put up with, Veronica. I gave you everything. The cars, the jewelry, the trips. You lived off me." Her laugh was sharp. "And you lived off me in other ways. Don't act like I didn't play my part. Who smiled at your side when you needed attention? Who made you look young and alive while your wife sat in the shadows? That was me, and I did it because you promised me a life without limits." Richard's face burned. "And the moment money slows down, you're gone." She didn't hesitate. "I didn't sign up for poverty. Call me when you're useful again." By evening, her penthouse was half empty. A driver carried her suitcases down. She left one cold text. "You're finished. Don't call me." Richard stared at the words, stunned. The mistress he had once flaunted like a prize had discarded him without a backward glance. Evelyn visited Clara's apartment with more papers. "The asset freeze is official. The children's trust is protected. Richard won't touch a dime." Clara exhaled, the tightness in her chest easing. Evelyn added, "The district attorney wants to speak with you. If you cooperate, Richard's fraud case will move fast." Clara looked out the window at the city, glowing under evening lights. "Then we'll cooperate. He played with people's lives. He thought he was untouchable. It's time he learns otherwise." She tucked her children into bed. Her son whispered, "Will Dad go to jail?" "I don't know," Clara said softly, "but we'll be safe." Later, she sat at the same kitchen table where, weeks earlier, she had typed her first note, "What I know." Now she opened a new page and wrote, "What comes next?" The list was short. Tell the truth. Protect the kids. Don't look back. Her empire wasn't built on yachts or lies. It was built on patience, planning, and finally, courage. And as Richard sat alone in his silent mansion, staring at a subpoena he couldn't ignore, Clara closed her notebook with steady hands. The masterstroke wasn't just that she destroyed him. It was that she replaced him, with dignity, with power, and with the truth. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed outside, reporters crowded the steps, and the name Richard Collins buzzed across every screen in America. Once he had walked into rooms to applause. Now he shuffled in with two lawyers at his side, pale and sweating, his once perfect suit hanging loosely on him. Clara sat near the front, calm and composed. She wore a simple navy dress, not flashy but strong. Her children were not there. She refused to let them see this part of their father's collapse. Beside her sat Evelyn, her lawyer, who whispered updates in her ear as the judge entered. "All rise." Richard looked around, eyes darting. He searched her face for pity, maybe a sign of the woman who had once carried him through poverty. But her gaze was steady, cold, unshaken. The prosecutor began, laying out the case with precision. Offshore accounts, tax fraud, secret payments, the recordings of Richard's own voice. Each piece landed like a hammer on stone. Richard whispered furiously to his lawyer, "They're twisting everything. Make them stop." "Richard," his lawyer muttered, "the evidence is solid. You need to sit quietly." "I built this empire," Richard hissed. "They wouldn't have jobs without me." "Empires built on lies crumble," the lawyer said flatly. Witness after witness spoke. Former employees testified about pressure to falsify numbers. Vendors described unpaid debts. A banker admitted Richard had pushed for hidden transfers. Finally, Clara was called to the stand. She walked forward without hesitation. Richard's jaw tightened as she passed him. She took the oath, sat down, and folded her hands neatly in front of her. "Mrs. Collins," the prosecutor began, "you lived with Mr. Collins for 15 years. "Yes," Clara said calmly. "I was there from the beginning." "You supported him when he was starting out." "I did. I sold my jewelry, borrowed money for rent, typed his first contracts. I built the foundation of his company beside him. And yet, in later years," Clara's eyes lifted to Richard's, "in later years, he built his success on lies. He humiliated me in public, paraded his mistress everywhere, and mocked me for staying. He thought my silence meant weakness. But I was documenting everything." A hush spread through the courtroom. "Documenting?" the prosecutor asked. Clara nodded. Every contract, every suspicious payment, every phone call he took on speaker. I kept records. He thought I wasn't listening, but I was. For years I was listening. Richard suddenly stood, face red. Liar, you wouldn't have anything if not for me. The judge's gavel slammed. Sit down, Mr. Collins. Richard sank back into his chair, trembling with rage. Clara didn't flinch. The prosecutor continued. And what did you do with this evidence, Mrs. Collins? I gave it to my lawyers. I moved my shares out of his company, and I invested in a rival firm, Northbridge Technologies. And your role there now? I am chairwoman, Clara said simply. The prosecutor smiled faintly. So, while Mr. Collins' company collapsed under the weight of his fraud, you created a stable alternative. Yes, Clara said. Not because I wanted revenge, but because people deserve better than his lies. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Richard's head dropped into his hands. When Clara stepped down, Richard's lawyer tried to recover, painting him as a visionary, a man targeted by a bitter wife. But the evidence was too strong. The recordings were undeniable. The paper trail was clear. At recess, Richard finally confronted Clara in the hallway. His eyes were wild. Clara, listen to me. We can fix this. You've made your point. You won. But think of the children. Don't destroy me completely. Clara's voice was calm but sharp as glass. I thought of the children every day while you dragged our name through the mud, while you made a fool of me in public, while you fed lies to the world. You didn't think of them. You didn't think of me. You only thought of yourself. I can change, Richard said desperately. I'll cut Veronica off. I'll Clara. Clara's eyes narrowed. Veronica already cut you off. Just like you're bored. Just like your friends. You only come to me because you've run out of options. Richard's voice cracked. You don't understand, Clara. Without all this, I'm nothing. Clara leaned in, her words quiet but final. You were nothing the moment you chose greed over love. The world just finally sees it. She turned and walked away. Richard stood frozen, chest heaving, watching the woman he had underestimated walk out with her head high. When the trial resumed, the final blow came. A financial investigator testified about hidden accounts in Richard's name, totaling millions. The jury listened, stone-faced. In closing arguments, the prosecutor's words echoed through the room. Richard Collins believed he was untouchable. He believed betrayal was his right, and lies were his shield. But the truth does not stay buried forever. Today, accountability is here. The jury deliberated only 4 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Richard's shoulders sagged. His lawyers whispered about appeals, but the weight of the word guilty crushed him. The judge spoke firmly. Richard Collins, you are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Richard's face drained of color. As guards moved to escort him away, his eyes searched for Clara one last time. She stood calmly, arms folded, watching without pity. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Clara turned her back. She didn't need to hear excuses anymore. Outside, the cameras flashed as Clara left the courthouse. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Collins, do you feel vindicated? Was this revenge? What message do you have for other women? Clara stopped, looked straight at the cameras, and spoke clearly. Lies and dark that count the same. Then slowed as Simpson. His ups of an altar's hotel. His words like with warns, but underestimating the betrayed is fatal. Richard Collins built his empire on lies, and lies always fall. She walked away, calm and unhurried, as the crowd erupted with questions behind her.
That evening, at her kitchen table once more, her children played in the next room, their laughter soft but steady. She opened her notebook where she had written her final list. Tell the truth, protect the kids, don't look back. She crossed out the last line. She no longer needed to remind herself. She had already done it. For the first time in years, Clara Collins felt free. And Richard Collins, once a billionaire who thought he owned the world, was just another man brought down by his pride. The reckoning was complete.